Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new to my channel, g'day. How's it going, mate? My name is AussieTash. Today we're going to be reacting to and watching random facts about Canada. Been learning a lot about Canada recently, so I'm really excited to find out what some of these random facts are. But before we do, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. That'd really help me out. Random facts about Canada, let's jump into it.
This is Canada, a nation of majestic peaks, deep rivers, beautiful lakes, moose, and hockey. A nation that is also proud of its multiculturalism and unique Canadian way. Canada is also the second largest country in the world by area and home to 40 million people. Wait, that's smaller than California. That gives me an idea. Let's do a whole bunch of random facts about Canada. Certainly there's a lot you didn't know about this nation. So, sit back, grab some Nanaimo bars, and get ready for Random Facts About Canada.
I know you guys are crazy about your ice hockey over there, and you make the best maple syrup, and the home of William Shatner. That's pretty cool.
Canada has more coastline than any other country in the world. When you include the 52,455 islands in Canada, that's over 243,000 kilometers of coastline. That's 150,000 miles. It's not just the West Coast or the Maritimes, it's all of this. Meaning if you walk 12 miles per day, it would take over 30 years to walk all of Canada's coastline. The region with the least amount of coastline in Canada is the Yukon Territory. The province with the most coastline is Newfoundland and Labrador. If we weren't limited to provinces, the territory with the largest amount of coastline is Nunavut. And since we're in Nunavut, the northernmost permanently inhabited settlement is located here. It is located within the Qeqetlik region, or as most will say, it's located at the northern tip of Ellesmere Island, but that's no fun. What is this place? Alert, Nunavut, located 508 miles south of the North Pole. Now you're wondering, why is it here? It's because it's a Canadian Air Force station as well as an environmental weather station. At certain times of the year, it's dark all day, and at other times, it's bright and sunny all day. But believe it or not, Alert is not home to the record of Canada's coldest temperature. That actually belongs to Snag in the Yukon Territory. So what is that record temperature? Minus 81.4 degrees Fahrenheit, or minus 63 Celsius.
Minus 63 degrees Celsius. Wow, that is cold. Here in Queensland, I'm whinging about how cold it is when it's 12 degrees and I have to go outside wearing a beanie and a jacket. The Yukon, correct me if I'm wrong, is that where some gold mining started in Canada? Not quite too sure, I'm just thinking about that gold rush show and the Yukon's in that. Also, the coastlines. 30 years to walk those coastlines. It actually surprises me a little bit because obviously Canada's the second biggest country in the world, but I thought Australia's coastline would be bigger.
What was the hottest recorded temperature in Canada? We have to head over to Saskatchewan to the town of Yellowgrass. The record high was 113 degrees Fahrenheit, or 45 degrees Celsius. I guess I should also add that the warmest yearly average temperature for a province is British Columbia. The coolest, Nunavut. Of course, the further north you go, the cooler it gets. But does that explain why the majority of Canada lives within 62 miles of the US border? Check out this map. That green line shows the 62-mile mark from the US border, and those colors, the darker they get, the more population density it has. So as you can see, the majority of Canada's population centers are really close to the US border. Now this map's even crazier. We're going to add a blue line and a reddened area on the map. That red area is where over half of Canada's population lives. That means over half of Canada lives under the boundary of the 48 contiguous United States.
Wow, it's very isolated out there, isn't it? Just looking at this map here, the cities that I've learnt about in Canada, Toronto, Ontario, Montreal, they are located quite closely to US bordering states. Quebec City, that's a little bit out of the way there, isn't it? Just trying to find Vancouver. Can't see that. Kalgoorlie. Wow, that's all the way over there. I can imagine it'd be bloody cold out that way. They mentioned the highest is 45 degrees Celsius. Up top end Queensland, Western Australia, South Australia, 45 degrees Celsius. That's an average summer day, mate. So if you're thinking about maybe visiting Australia from Canada, just be prepared for the heat and the sun.
The area is also known as the 401 Corridor, or the backbone of Canada. Many of Canada's largest cities are located in this area. Speaking of largest cities, let's go through the top 10 largest cities in Canada. Number 10, Hamilton, Ontario, with 536,917 people. Number 9, Brampton, Ontario, 593,638. Number 8, Vancouver, British Columbia, with 631,486 people. 7th place is Winnipeg, Manitoba. 705,224 people live here. Mississauga, Ontario comes in at number 6 with 721,599 people. Edmonton, Alberta, number 5, 932,546. 4th place, Ottawa, Ontario, 934,243 people live in Canada's capital city. In the top 3, we have Calgary, Alberta, with 1.2 million people. Number 2, Montreal, Quebec, 1.7 million people. And first place, Toronto, Ontario, with 2.7 million people. And for good measure, the most populous province in all of Canada is Ontario, making up almost 40% of the population. It has 13,448,493 people. The least populated is Prince Edward Island, because it's a little island. Only 142,000 people live on Prince Edward Island.
Wow, all those cities they've shown there, they just look so historical and so old and so beautiful. None of our capital cities really look like that. They're all new and have the skyscrapers and all that stuff. These cities, they just look beautiful and they don't look too heavily overpopulated. I think they said Canada has 39 million people, but the capital cities aren't really that populated. Australia, we have 26 million people? And Sydney has like 5 million people. Where are all you people hiding at? 39 million people? Yet the top 10 most populated cities, only 2 of them have more than 1 million.
But that was out of the 10 provinces. What about the 3 territories that make up Canada? The most populous territory is the Northwest Territories, with 41,786 people, and the least populated is the Yukon Territory, with only 35,000 people. And since we're in the Yukon, the highest point in Canada is Mount Logan in the Yukon. It stands at 19,551 feet above sea level. The lowest point in the country is sea level, so 0. And over in the Atlantic Ocean, there is the Bay of Fundy. It is known for its dramatic tidal differences. From high tide to low tide, the difference can be 43 feet, or 13 meters. The area also gets 2 high tides and 2 low tides each day. Hey, a poll done by the Angus Reid Institute recently discovered which provinces are the happiest in Canada. It found out that Quebec is the happiest, with 22% of people saying they're very happy. British Columbia came in second, followed by Manitoba with 19%. Unfortunately, things were not looking good for the Maritimes. Canada's east coast was miserable. As of 2020, New Brunswick now ranked the poorest province in all of Canada, taking that position from Prince Edward Island. This issue is stemmed way back to the 80s, when overfishing caused certain fish populations to drop to about 1% of their normal levels. The Canadian government put restrictions on fisheries, which were the main economic factor for all of these provinces and their many small towns, and with it went jobs. Also, all the young people left as soon as they could. No fish, no jobs, no way to improve your economic standing. This was the beginning of the decline of Atlantic Canada. Today, they deal with depopulation and very high unemployment. Entire towns are becoming ghost towns, and the Canadian government is trying to move families away from small, isolated communities and move them into larger population centers to save money on services and transporting goods and resources. A similar thing happened on Canada's west coast, British Columbia. Many former boom towns, due to gold rushes or mineral extractions, kind of faded away over the years, and Canada's western coast is dotted with abandoned communities.
Well, that's pretty rough for Atlantic Canada, isn't it? It just looks so beautiful. But fisheries just overflooding the industry, I guess, just made it all collapse. It's a shame, really, because it just looks so beautiful. There could be something, isn't there something else that they can do with it to bring it back to life? Travel, restoration of these old buildings, get some government money in there and build some Airbnb places for you to stay on the water and overlook those beautiful mountains and all that scenery. I'd love to see it.
Unlike the Atlantic provinces, British Columbia still hasn't had that collapse of the fishing industry, though there are signs that's happening now. Poor salmon runs, negligent running of fish farms that create dead zones beneath them and allow invasive species to go out into the natural habitat. The list goes on, but British Columbia is looking towards Alaska and Washington State on how to conserve their environment better. But this next fact may shock you. Victoria, British Columbia is the last major city to dump raw sewage into the water. In the state of Washington, south of British Columbia, the state has long complained that BC hasn't been treating sewage and instead dumps raw sewage into the water, and a lot of that goes straight down to the state of Washington.
Our neighbors to the north in Victoria, BC, they're finally going to start treating sewage before it's discharged into waterways that we share.
This is the last major coastal community in North America to discharge raw sewage off of its shoreline. Washington lawmakers have been complaining about it for decades.
They have done nothing, and the raw sewage continues to flow into our shared waterways.
So for decades, British Columbia continued to dump raw sewage into the water. But over time, more and more cities began to stop doing that. But Victoria never changed its ways and didn't want to spend the money to protect the environment. It wasn't until decades of pressure from environmentalists and Washington state lawmakers forced the Canadian federal government to change their ways. The Canadian government created new laws and guidelines on how to be stewards of the environment. And because of that, Victoria is now getting a new wastewater treatment plant right as you enter the city. And this finally happened in 2019.
Hold on. They were still putting poopy water, raw sewage poopy water, in the waters for everyone to share up until 2019. You don't put in poopy water for everyone else to drink from, for your fish to swim in, and then you catch them. I'm glad they fixed that up.
Good job. Victoria's wastewater treatment facility is expected to be done in 2020. So that should be it with our raw sewage problem, right? Oh, I guess the federal government just allowed raw sewage to be dumped in the oceans and rivers for the next 20 years and it'll be completely okay. Not to mention the dozens of cities on the St. Lawrence River who are dumping their raw sewage in the river every single day. But everything's fine because we have Nanaimo bars. Okay, let's go on to our next fact. Traffic. Everybody loves traffic. So, which Canadian city has the worst traffic? Montreal, where people spend almost 50 hours of their life every year sitting in traffic. And since we're talking about cars, cars have license plates. Canada has some interesting license plates. Well, two territories do. Well, one territory now. There was a time when Nunavut and the Northwest Territories both had bear-shaped license plates.
Nunavut has bear-shaped license plates. From what I'm learning, the population is so condensed. Traffic is just going to be horrible. Absolutely horrible. 39 million people all living in such a tight area. It's going to be bloody madness. I went about having to spend 15 minutes to drive to work. These guys are spending hours in the car just to get to work, then a few hours to get back.
Nunavut switched to this design, but the Northwest Territories still has the bear shape. Well, now that you got a nice new license plate for your car, let's go on a little road trip to Alberta. Welcome to the world-renowned, head-smashed-in Buffalo Jump World Heritage Site, recognized by UNESCO. This cliffside was used by Aboriginals, who would drive buffalo herds off this 36-foot-high cliff. Many buffalo would die or break their legs at the bottom, where they would be rounded up and used for nourishment and other uses. You may have noticed throughout this video the imperial and the metric system is used, but Canada's kind of weird because speed limits and measure of length are done in meters, while the measure of height is done in feet. Canadians cook in Fahrenheit, but the outside temperature is done in Celsius. Food weight is done by kilogram, but the weight of people is done in pounds. This isn't universal, but it's pretty common. And just one of the many quirks that make Canada unique. And here's another unique fact for you. Did you know that Canada eats more donuts than any other country in the world? Probably because of Tim Hortons. And there you go. That was a bunch of random facts. We were all over the place. Hopefully you learned something today, because that's it for our random facts about Canada. Thanks for watching.
Random facts about Canada. Really enjoyed learning about some of these quirky facts you guys got going on there. The cities just look so beautiful. Population density and how close you guys all are together. That's bloody crazy. I'm really enjoying learning about Canada. The cities, the sites, the similarities that we have. You know, we're both under the Commonwealth. We both serve King Charles II. Yeah, there's a new king in town. Okay, that was my video for today. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, and please remember to subscribe. What country are you from? Do you have any quirky random facts that you'd like me to react to? If you do, leave a suggestion on my Discord. You'll find a link in the description down below. That's it for today. Cheers from down under. Bye.